Welcome, and this is the second part. Game ended. With a question mark in the end. I'm not giving spoilers. Not yet. This part could could contain a little bit of some spoilers. Not from Game of Thrones, as I mentioned earlier, but perhaps a little bit on the MCU part, which is the one that we're going to be reviewing the most. In the previous part, we were talking about how Game of Thrones became what it is. The MCU, we didn't went into the detail because we have seen so many making ofs and how something that started, because it was one of the points that I made from the previous part, is that both areas, as well as Game of Thrones and the MCU, when they started, they maybe were aiming at an Iron Man, perhaps a trilogy or something like that. Let's do one and let's see how it goes. And if it is good, we go with a trilogy. Maybe at that point they were not even talking about Avengers, but it was so fast that it was kind of it was maybe a more executed move on all areas. But by the time Iron Man 1 came, it wasn't those tie-ins. There were nothing like that. They made these teasers on the post-credit, on the now famous post-credit scenes, so they could keep people hooked up on it, because they want to make this build-up. And they went, as I mentioned earlier, with the Dragon Ball Z technique of the cliffhangers. Even though that plot of that movie specifically ended, we have this cliffhanger of that there's a bigger plot developing on the background, and that worked for 10 years to a charm, to a way that we have more than well-deserved ending to that first phase of the MCU. The thing is that, as I was mentioning earlier, that the MCU has way bigger challenges, and they're using a lot of vehicles. When you look at Game of Thrones, they're just aiming to create another series by the moment. They're not saying that they're going to make a prequel. Do Game of Thrones, if they keep treating the property as they have treated it, especially on these few last years, taking away the whole HBO hacking scandal, Game of Thrones has way... the only thing that I see stopping the whole Game of Thrones machine, it is that fans at some point, they could be a little bit worn off, and that is something that tends to happen when you... So they have in the case of Disney, in especially the MCU, they have been developing this series, and let's go straight to them, because in the first part of this entire episode, we didn't went the whole way. So first off, let's start with the first two titles that came out. Started as rumors. They're getting stronger by the minute, that they're aiming at that. There's 4 potential Disney Plus series surrounding, 3 of them surrounding the whole MCU, and one of them that is an attempt, but it hasn't been officially confirmed. That is the fact that they're gonna be, I don't know if they're gonna be rebooting Daredevil with the, perhaps at least with the part of the original cast, or are they moving forward with these other 3 series? The thing is that they have, from the series that they have proposed, there's one of them that they could even get into Game of Thrones, or Game of Thrones ground there, and it is the Loki series. At the beginning, the rumor on the Loki series was that it was going to be around the Kid Loki story arc, which sees Loki not as a villain, more as an anti-hero, and it follows him in a couple of adventures. But as time has been moving forward, Tom Hiddleston seems more embedded into the project, so that takes away most of the fact that it could be Kid Loki arc, because you're actually using Loki. So the thing is that he's looking way more embedded in the project, and it could be perhaps a whole Loki series. This gives Disney Plus the advantage to get into the whole Game of Thrones realm and start creating, perhaps, and it would be great if they go on this way. They will start creating another genre, especially in the fact that they not another genre. They will be expanding the actual existing genre that perhaps Game of Thrones has set out. Game of Thrones has another one, not from them, right? But let's say, for example, Westworld. It started with a big hype, but then all of a sudden that hype has completely gone down. Maybe because of the end of these two iconic pieces, Game of Thrones and the MCU, in one area. But the thing is that one of the main thing here is the fact that Loki could work to get Disney into that realm. Getting into that realm, officially Disney will be entering not with original material, but they will be entering a great arena, competing directly with an original product. And the thing is that they try it out with Star Wars. They work it in a way that it was a done deal. It doesn't matter what we do, it's gonna be keep working, just keep the good effects and keep throwing money at it. And they have found out that it's way more than throwing money at it. So the Loki series could be do or die for the whole series. I think it would be the one that could be asking for more budget than the other two series. But if it is done right and with the right cast and the right storyline, the right story arcs, Loki could be setting up the main part of the Disney Plus experience, now the new extension of the MCU. The thing is that Loki has that challenge. It's a do or die, or it could fall flat. Loki doing mischief, and it depends on how. Because the thing is that since now Disney has acquired the entire Marvel catalog, a lot of people are scared. And this is a story that you could go full Game of Thrones. You can go Game of Thrones in a kind of PG-13 environment. I don't see that there's a limit to it, because as Game of Thrones have done its thing on television, the MCU has done its thing with staying in a PG-13 rating, and they can swear a little, so that makes some grown-ups feel a little bit more comfortable that they're watching actually a piece that was on a comic that they read when they were 10 years old, and it helps on that matter. But the thing is, with the Loki series, it could broaden, because I would say at one point I can see on the Netflix series, it was that the Ground series that tied them all together, it was like perhaps a little bit of a small universe, so that didn't give these characters a lot of space to develop more away from New York. So let's say, for example, in a difference on the DC area, in the case of Arrow specifically, Arrow has created the Arrowverse, and the Arrowverse started with I don't know what was the name of the Star City. I think it was Star City. Yeah, no, Central City is for Flash. Star City is Arrow. So Arrow didn't get stuck in its city. It turned everywhere that the Oliver Queen stepped in, it turned it into a part of this universe. So if he went to Central City gets sucked in. So in the case of DC doing television, DC made a series to be this base for the rest of the series that we were going to develop, that made sure that it had the elements of they had the enough elements of interconnecting all of the others. In the case of Daredevil, it is a great series, but it locked the Netflix Marvel universe inside New York. And it's not bad, because some of the best heroes are from New York. I don't know if they have some expectations of using Spider-Man, and that's something that sucks, because it's not bad. New York itself can be its own universe, and it has proven successful through the years of comics. And let's say, for example, Gotham is most people say it is inspired by New York, but I say it is like mostly like a fusion between London, Chicago, and New York. It has like those three elements on it, but the thing is that Gotham has been developed to withhold and be this ground for so many more. So in that case, DC on television got it right. Marvel, even though Daredevil and Punisher are two of my favorite series of all time, they didn't develop a lot, and the fact that they did not have Spider-Man, that really hurt them a lot. So when we move on in years now, they were Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., and even though they introduced the Ghost Rider, which is one of my favorite characters in the whole Marvel pantheon, it fell flat. Even though it got direct reference into the movies, it fell flat. And you can compare it to Gotham. Once again, even though Gotham is not connected to the Arrowverse, it is an universe of its own, but it started with this mentality that Arrow started, that we're gonna develop a series that serves as a groundwork for new areas and new characters and new series that can be developed as this one is running, not waiting until the series itself is successful to start talking about potential another spin-off on good properties that have been legendary for so much time. So in that part, DC, they know the whole TV game way better than the MCU. And Loki has this potential that it can be that game changer for Marvel if they treat it right, if they work it right. It can be. And this is the kind of sad part when we get into the spoiler territory. But right now, the Loki series has one downfall, and it is in the same way that they have developed the entire MCU, and it is the fact that due to the events in the MCU, this series works as a prequel. And it also happens with the other series, which is one called WandaVision, which is the story of Wanda and Vision. And even though if it is a cute love story and everything, it is not like we are dying to see the MCU turn into Twilight. And I'm not saying that the actors involved, they don't have what it takes, like Paul Bettany and Elizabeth Olsen. They don't have what it takes to build up a great MCU series. But the thing is that, first of all, it is a mostly romantic series that will also get the prequel story treatment, and that's really a huge problem that Marvel has when it comes to television and when it comes to this future and potential series that will be coming out into the Disney Plus platform. That is the fact that they have this prequel curse. And the prequel curse, the